A Chilean court accepts a case against the president for crimes against humanity. Venezuelan authorities present the national budget for 2020. And U.S. sanctions hurt Sudan's most vulnerable. Hello and welcome to Telesur English. I am Estefania Bravo and this is From the South. A court in Santiago has accepted a case against the Chilean president, Sebastián Piñera, for crimes against humanity. The case against the president was brought by an opposition senator. It charges Piñera with responsibility for the dramatic increase in eye injuries suffered by protesters as a result of police repression during the last 2 months of Chile's uprising. More than 350 people have lost partial or complete vision as a result of wounds, mainly from rubber bullets. The Constitutional Commission of Chile's lower house has passed 13 articles dealing with preparations for a referendum on a new constitution. They call for a plebiscite on April 26 to ask Chileans if they want a new constitution and how it should be drawn up. They include provisions for gender parity and reserved seats for indigenous communities. The proposal will go to a vote in the full house on Wednesday. And protests against the neoliberal government of Sebastián Piñera in Chile continued on Monday evening. Demonstrators in Dignity Square in Santiago were repressed by militarized police who used water cannons and later tear gas as citizens demand that authorities respect human rights.
Es muy difícil. No sé. Le voy a poner el retorno.
Was reporting live on the protest when she and her cameraman were kettled by police and pushed from the area, with officers preventing the team from carrying out their work. She was reporting on a study showing the presence of sodium hydroxide and pepper gas in the water dispersed by water cannons. The study was carried out due to an increasing number of patients who have turned up with allergic reactions after exposure to that water.
Tatiana, como te estoy explicando,
Bolivian President Evo Morales gave a press conference in Buenos Aires, Argentina, where he said the coup against him was carried out because the right-wing opposition couldn't stand that he redistributed the wealth among all people.
On May 1st, 2016, we fulfilled the mandate of the Bolivian people, of the social movements, the campesinos, indigenous people, workers and teachers, of the nationalization of our resources. And the old giants said they wouldn't invest in Bolivia. And at that time, former President Néstor Kirchner said the Argentine people will be our partners. He called me and says, if they don't want to invest, I will do it.
Morales also said that he will fight to resolve the situation in his country and answer to the call of the indigenous people who demand democracy and sovereignty over their resources.
Presidents of the capitalist system proclaim peace, but I am convinced that there won't be peace if there's no social justice, if the dignity of the indigenous people is not respected. Peace is not assured by setting up military bases or interventions, or stealing natural resources, whether it be mining or oil reserves. And us Bolivians have fought against it, and we believe another world is possible, that Bolivia can exist without the participation of the International Monetary Fund. That was our biggest crime, and this was also a coup due to our lithium, because the future of energy is based on lithium. In no time, it will sustain all our energy.
Massive rallies are being held to condemn the coup in the Bolivian province of Chapare. Union members gathered on Monday to show their support for the movement towards Socialism Party and to look ahead towards new elections. The de facto government has already threatened to disenfranchise the massively pro-Evo Morales region ahead of the planned election. While soldiers remain in Chapare confined to barracks, police loyal to the coup government chose to leave. And also in Bolivia, muralist Leonel Jurado has been arrested while creating art in solidarity with the loss their lives in the Sencata massacre. He has been charged with sedition. A protest against the arrest has been planned in El Alto. Moving on, anti-government protests in Colombia on Monday spanned day and night, with demonstrations reaching day 26. Monday's protests included a cacerolazo, or mass pot banging, in the day outside of the Colombian Congress in Bogotá against the government's tax reform. And as protests continued into the night, SMAT riot police used repressive force, leaving several injured by tasers and rubber bullets. Among them was student Cristian Rodriguez, who was injured in the eye at a demonstration at the National University, among several other students. The Vice President of Venezuela has delivered the national budget draft bill for the year 2020 with a strong approach in the area of social investment. More details from this report.
Standing before Venezuela's National Constituent Assembly, Vice President Delcy Rodriguez estimated that 3/4 of the national budget will be designated for social investment in the areas of health, housing, social security, and food production.
76% of the income is assigned to social investment, to productive development, as President Maduro has requested. It is an instrument against inequality, against asymmetry.
For the second consecutive year, the National Constituent Assembly processed and approved the budget, as the parliament is still in contempt, with its procedures still rendered invalid by the country's judiciary.
It seems we can't do it due to the lack of quality of the National Assembly. To assume that discussion, the country cannot be paralyzed, and hence the importance of having a constituent National Assembly like the one we have today.
The 2019 budget, as projected for 2020, is looking to confront and contain the effects of the economic war and the consequences which these illegal sanctions imposed by the U.S. have had on the people.
In such a complex geopolitical economic context, which is characterized by international siege through coercive measures applied to the Republic, to its entire economy, without distinction, to entities of the state, including the one I represent, restricting access to external resources, hindering trade relations of all Venezuelans with the rest of the world, and in general, limiting the action of economic policy to achieve stability and recover the growth path.
It's with the assistance of Venezuela's international partners that the country was able to access medicine and food in 2019, along with generating a new financial structure.
Venezuela is blocked by the entire world, except for the New World, which is being created and which is creating a geopolitical and power pole in the world. Cooperation with Russia and China has meant that we can guarantee social programs and the well-being of our people in the worst of circumstances.
Venezuela has been developing a systematic social protection scheme, which includes the distribution of bonuses and the delivery of subsidized food boxes since 2016.
We'll be right back. Stay with us. Welcome back. The coffee production sector in Honduras is in crisis as they deal with fewer workers and a drop in production when compared to last year. Our correspondent in Tegucigalpa, Gilda Silvestrucci, reports.
Coffee production in Honduras usually creates around 1 million jobs per year. But this year, production has been threatened by the massive migration of Hondurans who are fleeing poverty and violence.
Around here, people abandoned the farms in money. Here in Santa Barbara, migrated in hopes of reaching the United States.
In 2016, according to official data, over 1 million tons of coffee were sold. But the drop in workforce this year will only allow sales to reach just over 700,000 tons, equivalent to $250 million. On top of this situation, there is a rise in the cost of supplies and the effects of climate change.
We are motivating producers so they realize that climate change is real and that it affects everyone. Also, that coffee is a crop that needs to be grown in the shadows. It needs protection from the sun.
To fight the drop in workforce, many farms are hiring people from the border region with Guatemala and El Salvador, and the lack of male workers has also allowed more women to be hired. In Honduras, there are 120,000 families who live from coffee production, and now they have to deal not only with the effects of climate change, but also forced migration. According to statistics, this year more than 200,000 men left Honduras in search of better work, and women have taken on their roles at the farms, in both production and management. In several farms, women have integrated more, in management, on the field, and in other ways. The crisis in the coffee sector goes hand in hand with deteriorating highways, high prices for goods, and a lack in competitiveness with foreign products. Many people are forced to leave farms, which in turn makes salaries less appealing.
There has been serious problems for the crops, because we don't have enough people. In the past we didn't have problems, but now we had to bring product from other places, because there are no people to pick our crops, even if the coffee is good.
Currently, Honduras is the sixth largest exporter of coffee in the world, and 95% of production is in the hands of small farmers.
Earlier in the month, the U.S. government dropped its case against Greystone editor Max Blumenthal and member of the Embassy Protection Collective, Benjamin Rubenstein. The case rested on accusation of a Venezuelan opposition activist who claimed that Max and Ben Rubenstein had assaulted her while they were delivering food to Venezuela's embassy in Washington, D.C.
Marmalade.
Earlier, we spoke to Ben Rubenstein, a peace activist and a member of the Embassy Protection Collective. He provided a summary of his arrest and the subsequently dropped charges.
Well, it was about 3:30 a.m. on May 8th, when Max, myself, and multiple groups of people were doing a food delivery inside the embassy. It went pretty smoothly. I actually was assaulted during it, but I sort of just brushed it off and walked away. Then later that day, around 6 p.m., I showed up at the embassy and I was basically immediately arrested on the spot. The Secret Service officer who arrested me said that he had seen a video of the incident and obviously was like, well, no, you didn't, because it didn't happen. That they detained me anyways and spent the next about 20 hours in jail alongside Jerry Condon, Veterans of Peace president. And after that, I got out, and it was pretty stressful, but it was good having the support of my friends at the embassy and as well as the Venezuelan people. That really made it a lot easier. So it was a lot of just like waiting and doing nothing, which is, you know, anxiety inducing. But there was one day where the accuser, Nylet, actually showed up at court, and I think she thought I was going to take the plea deal that they had offered me, but I turned both the plea deal and the divergence down. And then shortly after that, Max was arrested, and here we are now.
Rubenstein says it's clear to him that the Washington, D.C. police was working with the Venezuelan opposition supporters there outside of the embassy.
You know, it was a toddler could have noticed that the Secret Service, State Department, MPD were working with these violent fascists. It was blatantly clear. Our people would be assaulted and then we'd get arrested, much like what happened to me. So that was pretty clear to see. In terms of the video, no, I don't think a video ever existed of what they're saying. Well, I know it didn't, because what they're saying didn't happen. That being said, there are multiple videos of the food delivery floating around the internet. if you can find them.
Moving on to Argentina, the administration of Alberto Fernandez presented a new project for women to legally interrupt their pregnancy. The law came into effect across the country and must be applied in private and public institutions.
The measures adopted by Health Minister Ginette González-Garc aims at updating abortion practices, taking into consideration changes that have taken place in legislation, such as the approval of the 2015 Civil Code, among others.
We've started to apply the law we believe in. Of course, there will be some anti-rights organizations that will question it. Clearly, what we are doing is providing a medical measure in order to not only abide with the law, but to respect the human rights of people that unfortunately are in a situation requiring a legal interruption of a pregnancy.
The new law seeks to protect the patients' and doctors' rights.
This legislature issue a law that protected the rights of everyone, and Macri voted it. And the former minister, Lemos, sanctioned the project as restrictive. In Buenos Aires, we are better off than in other provinces, and the voluntary interruption of pregnancy is guaranteed. But still, the project is still very restrictive, and we believe it's essential that this project adheres to the national protocol, which is much more broader.
But not all provinces agree on the total implementation of the protocol. Despite this resistance, the Frente de Todos councilwoman Claudia Neira is looking to convince the anti-rights sector.
Today's debate is not about abortion yes or abortion no, because thousands of abortions are held every day in Argentina, with huge risk for the life of those women. The debate is about having legal, safe and free abortion in equal conditions, because the truth is that the nowadays abortion is accessible for those women who are able to afford it. Meanwhile, poor women die or end up with health problems because they are not able to guarantee their rights.
With the current protocol, doctors in Argentina are obliged to inform the mother about the right to voluntarily interrupt the pregnancy, and they cannot refuse to perform it.
We'll be right back. Stay with us. Welcome back. Sudanese citizens have decried the economic hardships they are facing due to sanctions imposed by the United States. Business people in the country have expressed concern with operational challenges which began decades ago. Most recently, additional officials have been put on a list of sanctioned people. Washington has renewed the sanctions, accusing the country of allegedly supporting rebel fighters.
We can't make further investments on spare parts because we cannot open a bank account without a letter of credit.
There are absolutely no transfers made from a bank inside Sudan to a country outside Sudan in a convertible foreign currency, whether in dollars, sterling, euros, dirhams, or the Saudi riyal, nothing. There is never any transfer done through the banking system.
The Libyan government has deployed military reinforcements to Tripoli in an attempt to pacify the fighting in the southern part of the capital. The United Nations recognized Libyan National Accord government has announced that it has dispatched the military reinforcements as the Khalifa Haftar-led forces continue their offensive in the area. Hundreds of people have so far been killed and several displaced since the clashes began in Tripoli. Former Pakistan military leader Pervez Musharraf has been sentenced to death for high treason charges. A Pakistan court sentenced the former president in absentia for having subverted the country's constitution to extend his rule. In November 2007, Musharraf suspended the constitution and imposed new emergency laws, triggering nationwide protests. He seized power through a coup in 1999 and served as president up to 2008. He is currently exiled in Dubai.
This case is all wrong. We have said this before too. We have said it 10 times that this case is wrong. All cases related to this case are also wrong, because this case should have been filled by the Interior Secretary with the approval of the Cabinet. The emergency that Pervez Musharraf declared on November 3, 2007 was done on the advice of the Prime Minister and with the consultation of everybody and all the stakeholders.
China and Russia have jointly called on the UN Security Council to lift sanctions imposed on North Korea. The two countries have proposed that the Security Council consider a draft of resolution that will lead to a consensus on easing sanctions. The United States maintains that North Korea must remain sanctioned, a move that could jeopardize the nuclear and missile program talks which the two countries have been holding.
We hope that the Security Council will speak with one voice in support of a political resolution to the peninsula issue and encourage the United States and North Korea to respect each other's concerns and show flexibility and sincerity and meet each other halfway.
Police repression was seen in France as protests and strikes are continuing across the country against President Emmanuel Macron's proposed pension reforms. Black-clad protesters were seen returning tear gas canisters at police after they moved in to disperse crowds. Striking workers from major workers' union CGT were on the streets on Nantes earlier in the day, along with high school students and feminist activists. They marched next to the city's historic castle as part of a series of actions set to unfold on Tuesday to bring momentum to the general strike. And more demonstrations continue in Paris against the government's reforms. Marching trade unionists say they'll remain firm in their demands even as the holiday nears. And with that, we've come to the end of this news brief. You can find these and many other stories on our website at telesurenglish.net. And also join us on social media. We are on Facebook, on Twitter, and on Instagram. For Telesur English, I am Stefania Bravo. Until next time.